Hi, I am Nash Patel of Carat 22 Jewelers in Houston. Back in February, there was a major heist on Hillcroft at our store, and the thieves managed to break into our vault, which was like a bank vault, and walked away with all the merchandise that was in there. And since this was one of the largest heists in the city of Houston, the chief of police assigned the best team to look into this case, and from here we also informed the police department that there is a lot of insecurity in that area, and then the initiative started from there, and finally the chief of police decided to take some real good measure, and today we are gathered here for that particular purpose, for the chief to understand what the difficulty and the security issues are in our area, especially with a minority community like ours.
Jain, Council Member at Large Yolanda Jones. We have from the Gujarati Samaj Nisha Mirani, Danny Nguyen from the Vietnamese American Chamber, Mr. Chad Patel from the Global Organization of People of Indian Origin, Council Member Brenda Stardig, Minnie Tipmaraju, the President of the Indo-American Political Action Group, John Trevino, who is the Commanding Officer of Officer Patel, Joni Volman from the Harris County District Attorney's Office, Selil Yaka from the Turkish American Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Ramesh Shah, the President of Ekal Vidyalaya, Ben Bansal representing the ASI, and Ricardo Rodriguez from the Sharpstown Management District. I'm sure we've left some officials out. If you would let me know, I'd be very happy and honored to recognize you. I want to thank Johar Malhotra from Indo-American News and Ruchi Roy from the media, and we have another representative of the media. And we realized that their issues were a little different from the rest of the city. For example, we did not realize their drainage issues. So in one of the meetings, it emerged that drainage was an issue, security was an issue. So we, as a chamber, reached out to the council members. So Al Nguyen, their area council member, and Council Member Costello, Steve Costello, both visited Hillcroft Harwin, and Assistant Chief Chen, who is a strong supporter of, John Chen is a strong supporter of the chamber, joined us to talk about security issues and to talk about drainage issues. And what we realized was not enough people were reporting the drainage problems to the city. So if the city didn't know, the city didn't know. We thought it would be worthwhile to have the chief address some of the issues of Hillcroft Harwin, of the small business owners, because they represent small business. They are very successful. It's little India, it's a little Asia, it's a little everything. But we felt having the chief of police come and talk would be very relevant, and we appreciate his taking the time. We appreciate all the other officials who could take the time to join us. With that said, I want to bring forward the President of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, who is the chairman of our board, a very dynamic young attorney, Mona Parekh, to give the formal welcome. Mona Parekh, please.
Thank you, Jyoti. Always appreciate your kind words. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it is indeed an honor for me to stand before you and represent the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston. It is a non-profit organization established in 1999 with the sole objective of strengthening commercial and economic ties between the United States and India. In the 12 years of our existence, we have certainly actively promoted business within the Greater Houston community. All of us here are very familiar with the impact that has left behind from the global financial crisis. You know, today we are in the midst of almost a 9% unemployment rate. When you consider that, you realize that the story here in Houston is no different. Although we have succeeded in probably gaining back more than 70,000 jobs which had been lost during recession, we certainly are in no better position. In fact, the unemployment rate remains stagnant, high, and unimproved. You mix that up with the current economic circumstances and you realize that some of these economic setbacks are a perfect scenario for accelerating the propensity for criminal activity. Yet, ladies and gentlemen, it may please you to know that crime in the Greater Houston area remains relatively low. And we thank our police chief and the 5,500 or more HPD officers who sacrificed their lives in order to make this place safe. This particular, thank you officers. This particular location, certainly the Greater Houston area, comprises of over 100,000 Indo-Americans. The strong business community is very keen on enabling job growth. But with job growth and success is the need for greater law enforcement which can fight against crime and certainly provide a better, safer environment for conducting business and certainly raising families. You know, there used to be a time when all of us would think that taking some precautionary measures, as simple as just being conscious of your surroundings, looking around, being alert, being vigilant, was sufficient. And yet, in today's virtual world of internet and imagination, we hear about all of these security breaches. You know, just recently there were all of these headlines that the servers at the International Monetary Fund were breached. Similarly, there was an effort to steal user IDs at Gmail accounts. Combine that with the fact that there were breaches at, Lockheed Martin, one of the biggest US government contractors for defense. It makes you realize that once upon a time what used to be considered egregious crimes such as burglary and homicide, auto theft, robbery, assault, battery, all of that is nothing compared to the challenges that our law enforcement officers and various agencies face today. In the midst of an economic crisis, while we are facing one of the toughest financial times, I believe that the duties that these individuals are trying to live up to and the responsibility to which they have sworn is incredible. And tonight, the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce is honored to have with us some of these HPD officers and certainly their chief. We also have with us some of the city council members. You know, this city council is the one that truly believes in bringing fiscal responsibility as far as the government is concerned. Tonight, the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce recognizes our police chief, who leads an incredible staff of police officers. And look at their badges, ladies and gentlemen. These are believers in justice with mercy and order for law. Thank you so much. Welcome to tonight's program.
Thank you, Minister of the Law, walking up to you and introducing himself to you. It's normally not a good thing. So with that, let me try and do justice. Charles Mclellan was sworn in as the Chief of the Houston Police Department on the 14th of April, 2010. He has served 33 years with the HPD, ladies and gentlemen, a lifelong commitment to public safety and the city of Houston. He joined the department as a patrol officer in 1977 and rising through the ranks to his current position as chief. His management experience has touched virtually every aspect of law enforcement in our great city. His duties include managing an annual budget of $660 million, managing a staff of 5,400 sworn officers and 1,600 civilian employees. He is a proponent of community-based policing and enhanced crime reduction strategies using technology. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminology and a Master of Arts degree in Sociology, both from the University of Houston. He is a graduate of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's National Academy and has received numerous awards and commendations. He was born in Center, Texas, and has two daughters, Ashley and Brittany. I actually had the honor and privilege of seeing the Chief in action on the Public Safety Task Force that both of us serve on for the Greater Houston Partnership. Chief, thank you for your dedication to Houston and to public safety. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a great hand.
Thank you very much for that kind welcome. Certainly, it's a great privilege in your community and the businesses that you own. It is certainly, I feel like I'm the luckiest guy at the Houston Police Department because it is certainly a privilege and an honor to be the chief of such a great organization, dedicated men and women to public safety, who go out day in and day out and do their jobs to make this city safe, to make me look good. HPD is a very, very large corporation. We have almost 7,000 employees, over $660 million budget, and it's a difficult task. Our goal every single day is to get up and keep over 2.5 million people, along with their property, safe, spread out over 650 square miles. That is our goal. We're certainly better at it. Some days are better than others. We're more successful on some days than others. But that is our goal that we try and strive for every single day. When I became police chief last year in April, I wanted our employees to focus on 3 major goals. 1, to enhance police community relations. I think that is very, very important that the community have trust and confidence in our organization. It is a partnership that we must bond and strengthen. We can't do it alone. We know the community can't do it alone. We have to work together. 2, I wanted to increase the internal communication in the organization. As I said, it is a very, very large corporation. I can't run it by myself. There are men and women throughout the ranks at all levels in the organization that have good ideas, how to do things better, how to improve the organization. So I have to create avenues for their ideas to get to me and put some of those ideas in place. Last, I asked our employees to improve the efficiency of our operations by using technology, and we certainly have been successful in doing that. You will see some of our year-end accomplishments. I certainly didn't have enough brochures, but some of you have in hand our 2010 annual report, and that is just a snapshot or a summary of some of the accomplishments that we were able to achieve using your tax dollars and the resources. And just to give you a quick math lesson in the challenges that we face, out of our $680+ million, about 95% of that is for personnel costs, salaries. And we actually run the police department on about 5% with an additional, $10 or $15 million a year in state and federal grants. So as you can see, we are very frugal with your tax dollars. They're very, very precious resources, and we must get the maximum out of those resources. This particular budget year is going to be the most challenging year that we've had at HPD. We're certainly in a financial situation to where we must do more with less, and we must do it better this coming year. But nevertheless, the men and women of HPD has always risen to the challenge and always met that challenge and exceeded our goals. Last year, calendar year, we reduced all Part 1 crimes at all levels, violent and nonviolent, meaning murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assaults, burglaries, thefts, auto thefts. We reduced all of those crime categories and reduced our violent crime by double digits. So we certainly made this city safe. I truly believe that Houston is one of the safest big cities in America, given the resources and given the challenges that we face. And when I looked at, and these trends are continuing for the first quarter of this year, we're still having success. I specifically looked at, because even though crime is trending down around the city, I know that there are maybe some pockets, some neighborhoods, or some individual businesses that maybe experience a crime problem, and it's hard to understand. Well, the chief is saying that crime is going down around the city, but my home got burglarized, or my car got burglarized, or I got robbed, my business got robbed. Yes, that does happen. It can happen. It will continue to happen. But I looked specifically at some of the areas that you sent to my office that you were concerned about, Southwest Houston and 18th District. We have done extraordinarily well last year and this year. I was certainly very pleased of the men and women of the Midwest Division when I looked at some of those crime categories. Rape is down by 35%. Robberies are down 33%. Aggravated assaults, 4%. Murders are flat, not up, not down. But overall, violent crime is down in 18 districts by 21%. And when we look at property crimes, all categories of property crimes are down again. Burglaries, theft, auto thefts, down by double digits. So I truly believe that it is a combination of several things that have caused this. One, certainly the hard work and dedication of the men and women of HPD. Two, the partnerships that we have formed with the community. We are an information-based organization, corporation. The things that make us successful is information, and clearly you have done your part. You have cooperated by giving us information. You have cooperated by giving us your support. Sharpstown, that's a perfect example where technology has made a difference, where the installations of cameras in shopping centers, apartment complexes, certainly has made a difference. We have had some challenges, though, in 2010. We have certainly had some negative events we had a few individual officers that acted outside of policy. That embarrassed this organization. But that happens from time to time with an organization of 7,000 employees. But clearly, that does not go to the heart and soul of the men and women that represents HPD on a daily basis. We had some challenges technology-wise. We actually lost the use of our photo red light enforcement, that technology. I certainly believed in it. I still believe in it. And I believe it's a force multiplier. It helps me stretch my resources. And let me give you an example. And if I take photo red light enforcement, we still have to do traffic enforcement because we have to keep the motoring public safe. Running red lights and stop signs is certainly unsafe, causes injuries, fatalities, property damage. We have to continue to do that. But if I can no longer use technology to do that, I have to use a police officer. Very, very costly. I don't have officers to spare. I only have a certain number. And those officers have to come from somewhere to do that. When they could be doing some of our other core services, such as we have to answer citizens' calls for service. We certainly have to do follow-up investigations. We have to do forensics examinations. We have to run a municipal jail. And going into this budget year, because of our financial climate that we're in, we actually have to lay off 154 civilian support staff. That will have some negative consequences. Now, we're certainly going to be able to deliver all of those core services that I have just spoken about, but we have to do them in a different way. We have to do them with less. We have to work smarter. We have to increase technology. And some things, we will be slower. And I was told that I needed to leave 10 or 15 minutes or so for some Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief. I want to start with the first question on behalf of the Hillcroft Harbin merchants. Chief, one of the issues that the merchants in Hillcroft Harbin have brought up is the fact that many of the burglaries or robberies that happen end up happening outside your jurisdiction. So, for example, somebody may be stalking a customer outside a jewelry store and may follow him to Sugarland or Clearlake or to the motel or hotel he's living in. So there is a need for us to recognize that though there is a drop or a level in the incidences, a lot of the incidences that are really happening, that start there, end up happening somewhere else. So the break-in may be on my driveway in Sugarland or in Copperfield in Harris County. So that's one issue that we would like you to address. The other issue is there have been a series of break-ins recently. We also recognize that Officer John Chen and other officials that we know are making serious efforts to visit the Hillcroft merchants, to talk to them, to understand their needs. There have been spots, periodic checks on the different businesses, and feedback is being given to the business owners. And I was just talking to the Sharpstown district that they are going to implement that on a larger scale. So these are a couple of issues that if you could address, that would be very helpful.
Okay. Those are all very good questions, and let me try to address the first one, because it is the most complex and the most challenging. I believe crime is regional. Certainly people that commit crimes do not respect law enforcement jurisdictional boundaries. We all know that in law enforcement. Since I've been police chief, I've tried to do two things to try to increase our efficiency and information sharing in this area. I have spearheaded a quarterly meeting that I host with all the area law enforcement, sheriffs, Harris County, Montgomery County, Fort Bend County, and all the constables that are in Houston, Harris County, Montgomery County, Fort Bend County, along with the police chiefs of Pasadena, Sugar Land, Missouri City, and there's certainly some others, to talk about the issue that this question that constantly, that's raised in our community. With all the law enforcement resources in the region, why police agencies don't communicate and share information. My agency is the largest agency in the region, in the state, the 5th largest police agency in the United States. I have opened my doors. All of the technology that I have in my 24/7 crime center to supply all of those agencies that I've spoke about crime information. I have offered that to them. Our game tracker, many of the agencies use that technology to track gang members in their area. So we are making some progress in that area, but we have to start. One of the impediments is technology. Our radio systems are not compatible. Our computer systems are not compatible. All of these things are long-term that we're certainly working on. Radio interoperability is one that the federal government has mandated that we must do. That will help. But we have never sat down at the table like we do now quarterly to talk about these challenges and issues. So I do believe that we're going to get there. Secondly, a string of burglaries, or I believe you said burglaries that have happened in certain areas. Certainly that happens from time to time, and it's certainly more of a challenge in the summertime. Some of our teenagers that are out of school that certainly responsible for these type crimes. This is why it is so important that if we can, even though my resources are challenged in the Houston Police Department, there are other entities in the city that serve as effective crime prevention programs. Our parks, our pools, all of these facilities that give young people things to do, a place to go in the summertime instead of walking the street thinking about things to do, helps me. And I know that those department heads have been certainly challenged too. Our 24/7 crime center gives us the capability to track crime in real time. It's updated every 6 hours. So our police officers that go to work every day, they are briefed and can be given information on a daily basis, shift by shift, all of the crimes that have occurred on their previous shift, on their days off. So hot spots or spikes don't become out of control before we're allowed to, or before we have the opportunity to supply resources to them. So those are some of the things that we're doing to cut down on some of these spikes.
Chief, along those lines, I know the police department's done this for years, other places, but would HPD be willing to open up a storefront, HPD storefront in Little India and Hillcroft, Harbin area?
Well, let me say this about storefronts. I mentioned earlier that we had to lay off 154 employees. Many of those employees were responsible for staffing storefronts. The Houston Police Department has 28 storefronts, and we operate those storefronts about 1,400 hours a week. With the cut in our civilian staffing, we're going to have to cut that down to about 900 hours a week. So that's a challenge. We certainly have a criteria that we apply when citizens want new storefronts to open, and that is a criteria that we use. But given our budget challenge and our staffing challenge, our support to operate those storefronts, it's going to be very, very difficult. Changes in state law, because many of our agency heads are independent elected officials, and they do have responsibilities and duties that are required by state law that are different from mine. The Houston Police Department doesn't enforce any civil law, but the constables do, and they're independently elected. The police chief in Southside or Bel Air, he's paid to keep they're paid to keep those cities safe. They don't get any incentive for running a call for service in Houston, Texas. Regardless of the amount or the number of police agencies in the city of Houston proper, I cannot get out of public service to the city of Houston proper. It doesn't matter how many law enforcement agencies operate in Houston, Texas. If a citizen needs police service, I have that primary responsibility. Because everyone else can take their resources and go home. I can't, nor should I. So, to put your question like this, to save tax dollars and to merge police agencies, these are, incorporated cities that you're talking about, they're independent elected officials, certainly would require action at the State House. Above my pay grade and outside the scope of my specificity.
Who was injured? Nash Patel. We will be inviting his family to step forward in a little while to accept a plaque on behalf of the Indo-American community in recognition of his service and dedication. But before that, I would like to invite Akku Patel of Carat 22 to step forward, Govind and Narayan Kamnani of India Jewelers to step forward, Mr. Jasbir Singh Baba of Baba Jewelers and Raman Das of Palace Inns to please step forward. Sir, these four gentlemen are leaders of the Hillcroft Harbin business community who are co-hosting the event today, and they have a small token of appreciation on behalf of the Chamber to present you. Mona, will you please join us here? Merchants to please join in the next group picture. The other Hillcroft. That's okay. For 28 years with the police, he oversees narcotics, which is the group that Officer Nash Patel serves with, and we have invited Assistant Chief John Trevino to talk a little about Nash Patel, the young man we are honoring today, Officer John Trevino. Again, I would like you to please fill out the form. It's a survey, and we do need Indo-American Chamber of Commerce for having this event. I see a lot of friends out in the audience, and I know this means a lot to the Patel family. I was asked to say a few things about Officer Nash Patel. He worked for me when I was a captain at Eastside, and he was a gang officer
close to 10 years ago. So he worked in the East Side Division, working with some of the officers at that station and investigating gangs. He did such a good job that he moved on and was selected to be part of the Narcotics Division. Every police officer in the city of Houston does a very challenging and very dangerous job. But the job of a narcotics officer, an undercover officer, is very, very special, and it's extremely dangerous. The reason why Officer Patel couldn't be here tonight is because he is in that undercover capacity, and he's out there, and it's very important that we maintain his covert identity. But I'll tell you this much. What hasn't been said tonight is Officer Patel is a hero. He's a hero among heroes because he is the first to go in when we have to run a narcotic search warrant and go in there and kick the door in. He's the first to lead the charge. And on the day that he was injured, that charge, he was confronted with gunfire and was shot 3 times. And I remember the day when I was in the downtown area and I got to the hospital first. And Officer Patel is looking inside the ambulance, and all he has is to look at me and give a thumbs up and says, "Chief, I'm okay." And shortly thereafter, I mean, he has a bullet hole in his hip. It shattered his hip, and he is injured severely. But his first concern was, make sure my parents don't worry about me. And then he tells Chief Mclellan, don't worry, I'll be back on the job real soon. So that's the dedication and the hero that Officer Nash Patel is. Many people don't know this, but before this injury, a couple years ago, Officer Patel was also part of a team where they ran a search warrant on a very dangerous individual. That person had cameras and everything, and we had an officer that got shot very severely, and that was Officer Salter. And the hero, Nash Patel, is the one who went to his aid and dragged Officer Salter out of that building when he was taking gunfire. So it just shows you that his ability and his courage continues, not just when he was shot, but in his job. And I'd like to tell the people that he's back on the job today. Before I call Mr. and Ms. Patel up here to the podium, I'd like to tell you a little bit about them. Officer Nash Patel cannot be what he is without having a strong, firm foundation and having the parents that give him the ability to aspire, to grow up to be somebody, and to give back to his community. So I want y'all all to give a big round of applause to Mr.
And Rich Kathuria and Ashok Garg would please step forward, and the Chief, would you please step forward and join the Patels? On behalf of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, we have a small plaque. And a small shawl as a token of appreciation for all the great work that Officer Patel has done. So I will request Rich Kathuria and Ashok Garg to please present to the parents of Officer Nash Patel, Chief, and what else? Several questions.
Well, you are recognizing my son, Nash Patel, but I'd just like to tell you one little thing about Nash Patel. When he joined the police force, before that he was in the army. So I said, all right, go to the army. And he came back from the army, and he was trying to join the police force, and I didn't know why he was joining the police force. But my neighbor came and told me, "Is your son joining the police force?" I said, "How do you know?" So the police force investigation is background, you know. So when I went and asked Nash, "How do you want to join the police force?" He said, "Yeah, yes, I want to be a public servant. That's what my job is, and that's why he joined the police force." And he's very, very serious.
મારું નામ ભારતી પટેલ.
And my name is Shurish Patel. Oh, we are very proud of our son. Okay, I will talk to her, okay? We are very proud of our son. Nash Patel is a very dedicated person, and he loves his job. That's the greatest thing. And when he joined the police force, he says, "Daddy, I want to be a public servant, and that's my job." And that's what we are proud of him. And he's very honest, sincere guy.
My name is John Trevino. I'm an assistant chief of the Houston Police Department. And the question was, how have I seen the growth or the changes in the Harwin Southwest area? And what I've seen is a growth in the number of businesses and the number of residents and population growing in that area. So when you see an increase in population and you see more businesses, you have a tendency to also realize that crime is going to increase. But what I've seen in the last few years is the business and residential community have come together to partner up with the police department so they can work together as a team on how to reduce crime. And so we have seen crime considerably going down in the Harwin Southwest area. So the key to our success is to continue to work together with the business community so we can prosper continued growth and economic redevelopment, and we will see that community be one of the most prominent communities in Houston.